As we are beginning to learn about becoming friends with our mind, it's important that we learn a little bit about our brain development. Developmental trauma refers to the impact of our childhood experiences on the development of our brain and our nervous system. I first learned about this around 5 years ago from trauma expert Dr. Gabor Mate. It's simple, really. Human beings have a need to be connected with each other. So, a lack of connection is experienced, especially by children, as a survival level threat. We need food and shelter, and we need social connection. We need to know that we matter. This understanding about the need for connection is relatively new. I remember hearing about orphanages in Europe after one of the wars where they saved the babies and put them into orphanages, but no one was holding them, and they couldn't understand why they were failing to thrive, while even though they were being fed, they weren't growing, they weren't thriving as babies normally would. We didn't know about it then, but we know now how important it is to have real human connection at all ages in our lives. Many people didn't grow up feeling connected. Some of us were abused or experienced extreme emotional neglect. These experiences have an impact on the developing brain and on our nervous system. The result of these experiences of feeling abused or neglected or not mattering to anybody, if we're being hurt and no one's protecting us, the effect of these kinds of experiences is that we disconnect from ourselves. We start to turn against ourselves. We blame ourselves and we disconnect from ourselves. Children who are being abused will just kind of leave their bodies. They often won't even remember until much later, perhaps, what actually happened. It's because we have these mechanisms to protect ourselves, and disconnection is a big way that that works. We disconnect from the present moment, too, because it's too threatening to stay with. So we find some way to leave emotionally. Maybe it's a lot of daydreaming or fantasy. Maybe it's that we move into anger. We have many ways that we accomplish that. One of the impacts of disconnecting from ourselves is that we then don't have a sense of our own value. We might be getting the message from the people in our life that we're not worthy of even being taken care of. We may be getting that message from people in our community, from friends, from people at school. And when it happens in our family, when we don't have a sense of being seen and protected, it's devastating for a child. We can't stand to be with that, and then we find a way to handle it. One thing that's very common is that children blame themselves for what is going on in their environment. It's too risky to blame our parents, our caregivers, because we need to maintain some kind of hope that this must be something we're doing wrong, and if we could just do something different, we'd be safe. If we could be smarter or quieter or better, we would be loved and protected and attended to. So these are the dynamics that are going on for a child who's abused or neglected. And this is the birthplace of core deficiency stories. Core deficiency beliefs are those beliefs that happen because of the experiences that we've had. If we've had the experience of being unloved, then we may well develop a perception or a belief that we're unlovable, unworthy, unsafe. There are many of these different core deficiency stories that are a way for the child to try to understand what it is that's happening to them and to put the locus of control in our hands. If I could just do something different, then my parents would protect me, they would love me, they would stop hurting me. If we could see the truth that it's our parents, they're not protecting us, they're not seeing us, they're not valuing us for whatever reason of their own, and it's often their own trauma, then we would know that we had no control over that. And that's even scarier, it's even worse than believing that somehow we're at fault. Dr. Mate doesn't use the terminology of core deficiency stories. He talks about perceptions that are developed through our experience. The discovery of neuroplasticity in humans in 1998 confirmed that our brains develop throughout our whole life. That's only 20 years ago. That's very new in the understanding that medical science has. So to put it in simple terms, as children, oftentimes we're being hurt or abused or neglected, and this can be on a continuum from relatively mild to very severe. All of that is experienced as a threat. All of that causes disconnection from ourselves and from the moment. If we experience not being safe and valued and attended to, not included, then certain pathways in our brain don't develop. If a child has a basic trust in their caregivers and the environment, pathways open up in the brain that enable them to relate to other people with trust. So our brain develops, our nervous system develops in response to the environment, in response to feeling safe or not safe, included or not included, attended to or neglected. And then as adults, we blame ourselves for the brain development from childhood. We blame ourselves because we haven't had the opportunity to develop pathways of trust. We have coping mechanisms, dissociation, turning against ourselves, the deficiency stories that we believe. These are all adaptations that happened to make it through childhood. And as adults, often we no longer need them, and they cause us a lot of pain. As functional and as useful and as necessary as they were at one time, they aren't anymore. All of the adaptations are an attempt to be connected, and we carry them through into adulthood because we have associations of them being relatively successful in childhood. All of the adaptations are to try to connect and stay connected with our caregivers. As we get older, we're trying to stay connected in relationships with other people, friendships, social networks, community, people at work. The conundrum now is that we're not only not getting what we do need, we're also being hurt by people. So we shy away from connection. That leads to further isolation, which leads to further feelings of, I'm not lovable, nobody cares about me, and nobody is protecting me. I am all on my own. We don't feel attended to. We don't feel heard. When we do feel safe, we're able to open up. We're authentic, and we aren't worried about being judged. But many people don't have that experience. When we feel safe, we have the felt experience of being met. When we don't, we feel under threat because we don't feel connected. Safety is both an absence of threat and we feel connected. If you don't feel connected with other people, you still don't feel safe. Our system remains on yellow alert. We're always scanning, we're always hypervigilant for danger. Our life experiences then give rise to our adaptations in our brain and nervous system. It's important to understand the mechanism. This is how it works. It isn't something that we're doing wrong or that we're failing at. It is how the human survival system works to protect us and to connect us with other people. We can't expect to have healthy brain and nervous system development and to trust other people and to feel safe with other people if that has not been our experience. And because of neuroplasticity, our brains will change with our new experiences. So there is always a way to help to work with things that are troubling us, to develop healthier patterns, to let go of the experiences from the past and to heal from them. This is a major driver of dysfunction in our thinking process because our nervous system is driving a lot of compulsion, a lot of catastrophic thinking, a lot of that type of thinking that really gives us a lot of trouble in our lives. Understanding how this works is essential in healing.